The morning light filtered through my bedroom window, casting a warm glow across the room. I stretched and yawned, ready to embrace the day ahead. Little did I know, it would soon turn into one of the darkest days of my life. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I reached for it, still half asleep. As I unlocked the screen, a text message caught my eye. It was from an unknown number, but the image attached was unmistakable. There they were, Lisa and Jake, my ex-boyfriend, wrapped in each other's arms, their faces aglow with joy. The sight pierced my heart like a dagger, twisting and turning until I could barely breathe. I sat up, my mind racing as disbelief washed over me. This couldn't be real. Lisa, my best friend, the one who had always supported me through thick and thin, was now with Jake, the very person I had poured my heart out to not long ago. The betrayal felt surreal, like a scene from a movie that I was forced to watch as a passive observer. I could hardly process the emotions flooding my system: anger, sadness, confusion. I felt like a ship caught in a storm, desperately trying to find my way back to shore. After staring at the photo for what felt like an eternity, I forced myself to get out of bed. I needed to confront Lisa. There was no way I could let this slide. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked through the familiar streets to her house. The world around me felt muted, as if I were trapped in a bubble. I knocked on her door, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What would I say? How could she do this to me? When Lisa opened the door, her face lit up with a smile that quickly faded as she registered my expression. I could see the moment she realized something was wrong. I had always been the one who wore my emotions on my sleeve, but this time, I was too hurt to hide the betrayal etched on my face. I stepped inside, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had to say. As I confronted her, the conversation turned strained almost immediately. I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but she feigned ignorance, insisting that she never meant to hurt me. Each word felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal of our friendship that had spanned years. I could hardly comprehend how she could dismiss my pain so easily. The trust that had formed the foundation of our friendship shattered in that moment, leaving behind only the jagged pieces of my heart. I left Lisa's house feeling hollow, the reality of the situation settling in like a thick fog. The world felt colder, more distant. I trudged back home, my mind spinning with a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, and an overwhelming sense of sadness. How could my best friend betray me like this? And for him, I had thought Jake was different, that he was someone I could rely on. The way he had smiled at me, the sweet nothings he whispered during our relationship, they all felt like lies now. Once inside my room, I collapsed onto my bed, the weight of the world pressing down on me. I stared up at the ceiling, wrestling with the emotional turmoil inside me. Tears streamed down my cheeks, hot and unrelenting. I felt lost, like a ship adrift in an endless sea, searching for an anchor. The betrayal gnawed at my insides, but amidst the pain, a flicker of resolve began to ignite within me. I couldn't let this define me. I wouldn't allow their actions to rob me of my happiness. With a deep breath, I made a silent vow to reclaim my life and my happiness. I would not allow myself to be consumed by anger or sadness. Instead, I would channel these emotions into something powerful. I needed a way to express my hurt, to transform it into strength. That thought lingered in my mind, a small flame of determination igniting my spirit. It was time to reclaim my narrative, to rise from the ashes of betrayal, and create a life that was truly my own. The first day of my photography class felt like stepping into a new world, one where I could escape the harsh reality of betrayal. The classroom was bright, filled with the soft hum of chatter and the rustle of camera bags. As I walked in, I was struck by the mix of individuals gathered there. Some were older, perhaps seeking a new hobby, while others were fresh-faced students, eager to learn. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my recent heartbreak slowly begin to lift, replaced by an unfamiliar sense of hope. I found a seat in the front row, eager to absorb every bit of knowledge I could. The instructor, a passionate artist with a contagious enthusiasm, spoke about capturing moments, telling stories through images. I felt a spark of excitement ignite within me. I had always admired those who could freeze time with a click of a shutter, and now it was my turn to learn the craft. Each week, I arrived at class, a little more confident, a little more inspired. I learned about composition, lighting, and the importance of perspective. I experimented with my camera, capturing everything from the intricate details of flowers to the sun setting behind the city skyline. The more I photographed, the more I realized how much beauty existed in the world around me, even amidst my turmoil. I began to see my surroundings through a different lens, quite literally. Each shot I took felt like a step toward reclaiming my identity, one that had been overshadowed by my past with Jake and the betrayal from Lisa. As the weeks turned into months, I couldn't help but notice Lisa and Jake from a distance. They seemed to thrive in their newfound relationship, laughing and holding hands as if their love was an indestructible force. I often saw them at our local cafe, where they would share intimate conversations over steaming cups of coffee. Each sighting was a stab to my heart, a reminder of what I once had. I tried to shake off the feelings of envy and sadness that crept in uninvited, focusing instead on the beauty I was capturing through my camera. It was hard, but I had made a promise to myself to focus on healing. One day, while wandering through a park, I found myself immersed in a serene moment. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow on the ground. I raised my camera, capturing the dance of light and shadow. Just then, a familiar voice broke my concentration. It was Ethan, a friend from high school. We hadn't seen each other in years, but I recognized his warm smile instantly. Ethan approached me, his eyes sparkling with genuine delight. We struck up a conversation, and I felt a sense of comfort wash over me. He was kind, easy to talk to, and seemed genuinely interested in my photography. As we shared stories from our high school days, I could feel the weight of my heart lightening. It was refreshing to connect with someone who knew nothing of my recent heartache. We laughed about our awkward teenage years and reminisced about shared memories. As the days turned into weeks, our connection deepened. Ethan became a constant in my life, encouraging me and often coming to my photography exhibitions. He understood my passion and celebrated my growth. Every time we met, I felt a flutter in my chest, an awakening of emotions I had thought were buried under my pain. I found myself looking forward to our encounters, where we could share laughter and stories, making the world feel a little less heavy. With him, I began to explore the idea of moving on, of finding joy beyond the shadows of betrayal. My heart slowly began to open, and I realized that perhaps I could find happiness again. I was no longer defined by my past or the betrayal that had once consumed me. Instead, I was becoming the person I had always wanted to be, a woman with dreams, aspirations, and most importantly, the strength to rise above the hurt. As I immersed myself in photography and nurtured this new friendship with Ethan, I felt the shift within me. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it no longer held the power it once did. I was learning to embrace the beauty in my surroundings and in the people who supported me. Each click of the camera was a reminder that life was still full of moments worth capturing, worth living. And as I looked ahead, I felt a rush of excitement at the thought of what could come next. As I stepped into the photography class, the soft hum of conversation filled the air, buzzing with the excitement of new beginnings. I clutched my camera tightly, feeling its weight as a comforting reminder of my newfound purpose. This was more than just a hobby. It was my way of reclaiming my life after everything that had shattered a few months ago. I could already envision the landscapes, the sunsets, and the fleeting moments of joy that I would capture. Each click of the shutter would be a step towards healing, a way to document my journey from heartbreak to hope. The instructor was charismatic, with a passion for capturing the world through the lens that ignited something within me. As we ventured outside for our first assignment, I felt the warmth of a sun on my skin, a stark contrast to the coldness that had enveloped my heart since discovering Lisa and Jake together. The vibrant colors of the flowers in bloom and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred something deep within me. I began shooting, instinctively framing each shot, allowing my emotions to guide me. With every click, I felt an ounce of my pain dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose. As the days turned into weeks, my camera became my confidant. I wandered through parks, capturing candid moments of laughter among friends, children playing, and couples in love. Each photograph was a testament to my resilience, a reminder that beauty still existed in the world, even if I had lost sight of it for a while. I felt my heart begin to mend, and the shadows cast by betrayal started to lift. One afternoon, while reviewing my photos, I found myself lost in a moment captured of a sunset. The swirling colors of orange and pink melted into each other, and I realized that, like the sunset, I too was on the verge of a new beginning. I thought of Ethan, how he had been a beacon of light during my darkest days. His unwavering support and genuine kindness had breathed new life into me. The next evening, we found ourselves sitting on the steps of a local cafe, the golden hour casting a warm glow around us. Ethan shared stories about his life and dreams, and as he spoke, I could feel the connection between us deepen. His laughter was infectious, and I found myself smiling without effort. In that moment, I knew I was ready to embrace this new chapter. It felt liberating to share my thoughts and fears, to be vulnerable and open with someone who genuinely cared. Ethan encouraged me to embrace the beauty of moving on, to let go of the weight that had held me back for so long. We talked about the importance of finding joy in the present, of not letting past heartbreaks define our futures. With each word exchanged, I felt an unmistakable spark igniting within me, a flicker of hope for what lay ahead. I realized that I had a choice, to dwell in the past or to step boldly into the future. As the evening air cooled around us, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was not just Melissa, the girl scorned. I was a woman rediscovering herself, someone unafraid to pursue happiness. My photography had become a powerful tool for expression and healing, a way to communicate my journey without uttering a single word. The day of my first exhibition arrived, and my heart raced with a mix of excitement and anxiety. I had curated a collection of photographs that encapsulated my journey of healing, each image a chapter in my life, a testament to resilience and growth. As I hung my work in the local gallery, I reflected on how far I had come. The nervousness that threatened to consume me slowly transformed into pride. As people began to arrive, I felt a rush of emotions. Friends and acquaintances mingled, their laughter filling the room. And then I saw her, Lisa. My heart clenched at the sight of her, a reminder of the betrayal that had once felt insurmountable. She stood there, her eyes scanning the room, and I could sense her jealousy simmering just beneath the surface as she took in the transformations that had occurred in my life. In that moment, as I watched her fidget uncomfortably, I felt a surge of strength within me. I had transformed from a heartbroken girl into a woman who embraced her worth, her passion, and her future. I was no longer defined by my past. I was ready to move forward and embrace the life I was building for myself. The photographs on the walls were more than just images. They were symbols of my resilience, my artful rebellion against the pain that had once consumed me. As the evening unfolded, I felt a sense of peace envelop me. I was surrounded by friends who believed in me and a budding connection with Ethan that promised something beautiful. I realized that true revenge was not about retaliation, but about thriving in the face of adversity. I had chosen to rise, to reclaim my happiness, and that was the most empowering act of all. As I stepped into the vibrant atmosphere of the party, a wave of confidence washed over me. The music pulsed through the room, a lively backdrop to the laughter and chatter that filled the air. I felt a sense of liberation, a stark contrast to the turmoil I had experienced not long ago. Dressed in a striking red dress that accentuated my figure, I could feel the eyes of the guests on me, admiring my transformation. I had worked hard to reclaim my sense of self, and tonight was a celebration of that journey. Ethan stood beside me, his presence a steadying force that made the evening even brighter. His laughter was infectious, and I found myself genuinely enjoying the moment, allowing the past to fade into the background. I caught glimpses of Lisa and Jake across the room, their laughter ringing hollow to my ears. They seemed so engrossed in each other, but I couldn't shake the feeling that their happiness was superficial. I had learned too much about the fragility of trust and the weight of betrayal to be swayed by their facade. As the night wore on, I felt a mix of empowerment and vulnerability. The way Ethan looked at me made my heart flutter, and I could sense the chemistry building between us. It was refreshing to share this space with someone who appreciated me for who I was now, not who I had been. However, the sight of Jake approaching me sent a jolt through my body. His presence was overwhelming, and I braced myself for the interaction that would inevitably unfold. When he stopped in front of me, I noticed a flash of uncertainty in his eyes, as if he wasn't quite sure how to approach me after everything that had happened. I felt a surge of strength within me, a resolve that had been nurtured through my photography and the support of my friends. He began to speak, his words a mixture of nostalgia and charm, reminiscent of the way he used to draw me in. But I was not the same girl who had fallen for his sweet talk before. I had grown, and I was no longer willing to accept half-hearted gestures masked as affection. With each word he uttered, I held my ground, refusing to let him manipulate my emotions as he once did. I could see the discomfort etched on his face as he realized that I was no longer a pawn in his game. The composure I displayed seemed to surprise him. I could almost sense him grappling with the reality that he had lost his grip on me. I had moved on, and he was now just a chapter in my past that I had closed for good. As I turned to walk away, I caught sight of Lisa, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. There was a flicker of something vulnerable in her expression, a realization that her actions had consequences. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but it was quickly overshadowed by the satisfaction of knowing I had reclaimed my power. I had not just moved on from Jake. I had also begun to disentangle myself from the emotional web that had formed between us all. Ethan and I shared a knowing glance, his expression one of admiration and respect. I was no longer just the girl who had been wronged. I was a woman who had embraced her strength and was unafraid to take control of her narrative. The laughter and music faded as I focused on the moment, on the way Ethan's warm smile made my heart race. Lisa's presence loomed in the background, but I paid her no mind. I had stepped into a new phase of my life, one where I was no longer defined by the actions of others. I was free to explore my own desires, my own ambitions, and my own happiness. As the night continued, I felt a sense of closure settling around me, a gentle reminder that my journey was just beginning. In that moment, surrounded by friends and the vibrant energy of the party, I realized that my true revenge was not in the chaos or the confrontation, but in my ability to rise above it all. I was crafting a life filled with joy and authenticity, and that was the sweetest victory of all. The air in the party was thick with laughter and music, but beneath the surface, tension rippled like an unseen undercurrent. As I stood near the bar, I caught a glimpse of Jake, surrounded by a group of friends, his laughter carrying a sharp edge that cut through the festivities. It was impossible to ignore the way he gestured animatedly, his eyes sparkling with a kind of careless confidence that I once found attractive. But now, it felt like a mask hiding something far more sinister. My heart raced, not with desire, but with a potent mix of anger and disbelief as I overheard him speaking poorly about me. His words, dripping with disdain, echoed in my ears. How could he still have the audacity to belittle me, to twist the narrative of our past? I felt a knot tightening in my stomach as I leaned slightly closer, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. He described me as needy, painting a picture of someone who was desperate for his attention, someone who had clung to him like a lifeline. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a cocktail of humiliation and fury coursing through my veins. It was as if he were trying to rewrite our history, casting me in a role I no longer recognized. The laughter from his friends faded into the background as I focused on Jake, my ex-boyfriend, who had once claimed to love me. Now he was constructing a narrative that served only to elevate himself. I felt a sense of clarity washing over me, a realization that I had dodged a bullet by moving on. This was not the man I had loved. It was someone wearing a mask of charm, hiding a heart that thrived on manipulation. And yet, there was a part of me that wished to confront him, to demand an explanation, to make him own up to the pain he had caused. But before I could decide on my course of action, I noticed Lisa approaching him, her face a mixture of concern and confusion. I could see the conflict brewing in her eyes, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. She was caught in the web of his lies, and even though I had every reason to feel betrayed, a part of me understood the struggle she faced. As she stepped closer, Jake's expression shifted, and I could see the arrogance drain from his face, replaced by a defensive posture that spoke volumes. Their conversation began quietly, but the tension escalated quickly. From my vantage point, I could see Lisa's hands gesture emphatically, her voice raised slightly in disbelief. I couldn't hear the words, but the emotional weight of the moment was palpable. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, watching as she confronted him about his behavior, her voice quaking with a mix of anger and hurt. It was a confrontation I had wished I could have, but now I was a spectator, watching from the sidelines as the facade of their relationship began to crack. The party's laughter faded into a distant hum as the argument intensified. I could see Jake's bravado faltering, his eyes darting around the room, searching for allies. But the truth was unraveling before my eyes, and I could feel the power shifting. Lisa was no longer just a friend. She was a woman standing up for herself, challenging the very foundations of the relationship built on betrayal. My heart raced as I witnessed her strength, her willingness to confront the lies that had ensnared her. As their voices rose, I felt a mix of emotions, satisfaction mixed with an unexpected sadness. Here was the truth laid bare, the revelation that Jake was not the charming prince he had once convinced us he was. But as I observed this unfolding drama, I also felt the pangs of loss for the friendship I once cherished. I had wanted to believe in Lisa, to trust that our bond was unbreakable, yet here we were, tangled in a web of betrayal that had changed everything. The energy in the room shifted, and I felt the weight of the moment settle over me like a heavy blanket. Jake's manipulative nature had been exposed, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation. I had spent too long feeling like a victim of his games, but now, watching Lisa confront him, I saw a glimmer of hope. Perhaps our stories were intertwined, but they were not the same. I was reclaiming my narrative, and as I stood there, a sense of empowerment began to bloom within me. The night continued to unfold, but the echoes of that confrontation lingered in the air. I realized that while Jake's relationship with Lisa was crumbling, I was on a different path, one that led toward healing and self-discovery. The chaos around me faded, and in its place, I found clarity. I was ready to embrace the future, to step away from the shadows cast by betrayal, and to find my own happiness, no matter how far I had to go. The atmosphere in the room was electric as the party reached its peak. Laughter and music danced around me, but I could feel the tension building like a storm cloud, heavy and dark. In the corner of my eye, I spotted Lisa and Jake, their faces tense, the facade of their perfect relationship beginning to crack. I could hardly believe I was watching the very moment their illusion burst. Lisa, usually so composed, had a fire in her eyes that I had never seen before. I felt an odd sense of anticipation, as if the universe had conspired to bring this moment to fruition. Jake's voice, laced with arrogance, broke through the noise as he dismissed Lisa's feelings, belittling her concerns as if they were mere nuisances. I could see Lisa's hands tremble slightly, her jaw tightening as she fought to maintain her composure. The tension escalated, and I realized that this was no longer just about the two of them, it was about the truth. With a sudden surge of courage, Lisa took a step forward, her voice rising above the music, demanding the attention of everyone in the room. She wasn't just confronting Jake, she was confronting the lies that had festered between them. As she laid bare the lies he had spun, I felt a wave of vindication wash over me. Each accusation was like a weight being lifted from my own chest. I had spent weeks wrestling with betrayal, and now, watching Lisa expose him for who he truly was, I felt an exhilarating sense of clarity. This was the moment I had unknowingly been waiting for. Lisa was finally seeing Jake for what he was, a manipulator who thrived on chaos and deceit. The room fell silent, all eyes glued to the scene unfolding before us. With each revelation, Jake's arrogance began to crumble, his face flushing with humiliation. He looked around, searching for allies, but all he found were judgmental gazes. My heart raced as I took in the transformation of the atmosphere. This wasn't just about Lisa anymore, it was also about my journey. I had spent so long feeling small and hurt, but now I was standing tall, witnessing the unraveling of a toxic bond that had once held me captive. As the confrontation reached its climax, Jake, his mask fully ripped away, finally lost his composure. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him, the echoes of his anger reverberating through the room. I felt a rush of satisfaction, but also a twinge of sadness. Lisa had taken the first step in reclaiming her power, yet it was a power born from a painful realization. I could see her shaking, the aftermath of confrontation washing over her like a cold wave. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of strength within me, a realization that I had emerged stronger from this ordeal. I was no longer a victim of their actions, I was a survivor. The journey I had taken, the nights of crying, the moments of doubt, had all led me to this point. I was deserving of love and respect, not just from others but from myself. Then, as if sensing my inner turmoil, Ethan stepped closer. He reached for my hand, and the warmth of his touch grounded me. In his eyes, I saw understanding and kindness, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. Together, we turned away from the remnants of the party, the noise fading behind us as we stepped into the cool night air. I glanced back one last time, catching a glimpse of Lisa, her expression a mixture of relief and regret. I wished her well silently, hoping she would find her own path to healing. But in that moment, I knew I had chosen mine. With Ethan by my side, I took a deep breath, ready to embrace the future that awaited me. My heart felt lighter, filled with the promise of new beginnings and the knowledge that true revenge had manifested not in spite, but in my own happiness.